This wasn't supposed to go like this. What started as subtle tension between Drake and Kendrick Lamar turned into one of the most intense rap moments in recent history. But now fans are starting to question everything, because what if this wasn't just a rap war? What if it was something else entirely? Social media is going crazy right now. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high as diss tracks dropped, responses fired back, and timelines filled with breakdowns, reactions, and theories. At first, it felt like pure competition. Two of the biggest artists in the world going head-to-head, bar for bar. But then, the narrative started to shift. Some people think this whole situation was orchestrated. Others believe certain moments felt too calculated, too perfectly timed. And now, a growing number of fans are asking a question that's turning heads across the internet. Was this beef? A setup? Now, let's be clear. Nothing is confirmed. There's no official proof, no direct statements saying this was planned. But the way everything unfolded, it has people looking back at every move differently, from early subliminal shots to full diss records to sudden escalations that felt almost cinematic. Fans believe there might be more going on behind the scenes than we realize. And when you start connecting the dots, the timeline gets very interesting. Because this story didn't start when the diss tracks dropped. It started years ago, and if you really break it down step by step, you might see why people are starting to question everything. Let's go back to the beginning. And to really understand why fans are now questioning everything, you have to go all the way back to where the tension between Drake and Kendrick Lamar first started. This wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow build, layered over years of competition, respect, and subtle rivalry. Early in their careers, both artists were often mentioned in the same breath. They represented two different styles, two different approaches to hip-hop, but both were clearly at the top of their game. At first, it felt like mutual respect. They collaborated, shared stages, and even praised each other in interviews. Fans saw them as part of the same elite tier, almost like two sides of the same coin. But then came the moment that many people still point to as the beginning of everything. When Kendrick Lamar delivered that now famous verse on Control, the tone shifted instantly. He didn't just rap, he called out names, including Drake, in a way that felt competitive, direct, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't disrespectful in a traditional sense, but it was bold. It was a statement. And from that point on, the dynamic between them started to change. Drake responded in interviews with a more laid-back approach, suggesting he wasn't taking it too seriously. But fans weren't convinced. Some people believe that moment planted the seed for everything that followed. Over the years, the tension never fully disappeared. Instead, it evolved. There were subliminal lines, small comments, and moments where fans felt like the two were sending indirect shots at each other. Nothing was ever fully confirmed, but the energy was there. Social media would light up every time one of them dropped a track, with fans dissecting lyrics and trying to connect them to the other artist. It became a pattern: drop a song, analyze the bars, debate the meaning. And each time, the narrative grew stronger. What makes this situation even more interesting is how differently both artists moved. Drake often stayed visible, constantly releasing music, collaborating, and maintaining a strong presence in the mainstream. Kendrick Lamar, on the other hand, moved more strategically, disappearing for periods, and then returning with carefully crafted projects that felt intentional and layered. This contrast only added to the tension. Fans began to frame it as quantity versus quality, consistency versus precision. People are divided even to this day on who holds the advantage. As time went on, the rivalry became less about direct interaction and more about perception. Fans started building their own timelines, connecting moments that may or may not have been related. Some believe certain lyrics from Drake hinted at frustration or competition, while others think Kendrick's approach carried a quiet confidence, almost like he didn't need to respond directly. Again, nothing is confirmed, but the interpretations kept the conversation alive. Then came another shift. the industry itself began to change. New artists entered the scene, streaming numbers became a bigger focus, and the way music was consumed evolved rapidly. Yet, through all of that, Drake and Kendrick remained at the top. That alone kept them linked, whether they acknowledged it or not. Every release, every award, every milestone, fans compared them. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about legacy. What really stands out when you look back is how controlled everything felt. There were no explosive public arguments, no chaotic back and forths, just calculated moments that kept the rivalry simmering. And that's where some of the current theories begin to take shape. Some people think the tension was always there but managed carefully, almost like both sides understood the impact of timing. Others believe fans may have created a narrative that grew beyond what either artist intended. Still, the emotional stakes were real. Fans were invested deeply. Every move felt important. Every lyric felt like a clue. Social media played a huge role in amplifying this, turning even the smallest moment into a trending topic. Emotions ran high as supporters defended their favorite artist, are often treating the rivalry like a personal battle. Looking back now, it's clear that this wasn't just a random conflict that appeared out of nowhere. It was built over time, shaped by moments, perceptions, and the constant comparison between two of the biggest names in hip-hop. And as the story continued to unfold, one thing became obvious. This rivalry was never simple. It was layered, complex, and possibly something much bigger than it seemed on the surface. As the years went on, the tension between Drake and Kendrick Lamar didn't fade. It evolved into something sharper, something more calculated. What once felt like competitive energy started to feel intentional, almost like both sides understood the power of timing and perception. And this is where things began to take a turn that had fans looking at the situation differently. The escalation didn't happen overnight. It came in waves, subtle lines in songs, carefully worded interviews, and moments where fans felt like the tension was being hinted at, but never fully addressed. Social media played a huge role in amplifying everything. The second either artist dropped a track, fans rushed to dissect every lyric, every tone, every possible double meaning. Social media was going crazy, and it felt like the audience was doing just as much work building the narrative as the artists themselves. Then came a period where things started to feel coordinated, not confirmed, not proven, but noticeable. Some people think the timing of certain releases, the way conversations sparked online, and how quickly narratives spread felt too perfect to be random. Unconfirmed reports suggest that moments of tension seem to align with major releases or key points in each artist's career. Again, nothing is confirmed, but fans began to question whether this was just coincidence or something more strategic. At the same time, both artists continued to move in their own lanes, but always close enough to keep the comparison alive. Drake maintained a constant presence, dropping music, collaborating across genres, and staying visible in a way that kept him at the center of the conversation. Kendrick Lamar, on the other hand, would disappear and return with impactful releases that immediately shifted the tone of hip-hop discussions. This contrast only added more fuel to the rivalry, making each move feel like part of a larger story. What really intensified things was the fan reaction. Well, people weren't just listening anymore. They were choosing sides. Debates turned into arguments, and arguments turned into full-blown online battles. Drake runs the game. Kendrick is the better artist. This isn't even close. The comments kept coming, and emotions ran high. People are divided, and the gap between both fan bases only grew wider as time went on. Then came the first major twist that made everything feel different. Certain moments, whether it was a lyric, a performance, or even a social media post, started to feel like they were pushing the narrative forward in a very specific way. Fans began to notice patterns. One artist would make a move, and shortly after, something else would happen that seemed to respond to it, even if indirectly. Some people believe this created a cycle that kept the tension alive without ever needing a direct confrontation. At this point, theories started spreading faster than ever. Some fans believe the rivalry was being fueled intentionally, not necessarily as a conflict, but as a way to keep both names at the top of the conversation. Others think it was simply two competitive artists reacting to each other in real time, with fans adding layers that may not have been intended. The truth is unclear and nothing is confirmed, but the timing of everything raised questions. Another layer to the situation came from the industry itself. Commentators, bloggers, and insiders began sharing their perspectives, often hinting that there might be more going on behind the scenes than what the public sees. And some suggested that moments like these can be influenced by marketing strategies or timing decisions, while others dismissed that idea completely, saying the rivalry is genuine and rooted in artistic competition. These conflicting opinions only made the situation more complex. Meanwhile, every new release from either artist felt like an event. Fans would wait, listen, and immediately begin analysing. Was that a diss? Was that a response? Or was it just a song being turned into something bigger by the audience? The line between reality and perception started to blur, and that's when the narrative really took on a life of its own. By this point, it was no longer just about music. It felt like a storyline, one that kept evolving, pulling in more attention with every move. And as the tension continued to build, one thing became clear. Whatever this was, it wasn't random. Whether it was intentional or not, the way everything unfolded had people questioning if they were watching a real rivalry or something much more carefully constructed. As the situation kept building, the energy surrounding Drake and Kendrick Lamar reached a point where it no longer felt like a normal rivalry. It felt layered, almost cinematic, like every move was part of something bigger, even if nothing was confirmed. Fans weren't just reacting anymore, they were investigating. Timelines were being created, clips were being reposted, and entire breakdowns started appearing online, trying to connect every moment from the past to what was happening now. Social media was going crazy, and the deeper people looked, the more questions they had. What made things even more intense was how each new development seemed to add another piece to the puzzle. Diss records, subtle references, and shifts in tone all started to feel connected. Some people believe certain lyrics carried deeper meanings than what was obvious on the surface. Others think fans were reading too far into things, turning normal competitive bars into something much bigger. But regardless of what was true, emotions ran high, and the conversation kept growing louder. Then came the moment where everything seemed to explode at once. Tracks dropped, responses followed, and suddenly the rivalry was no longer quiet or indirect. It was front and center. Fans are shocked at how quickly things escalated, especially after years of what felt like controlled tension. The internet lit up with reactions. See, this is getting serious. This isn't just competition anymore. Something feels different this time. Those were the kinds of comments flooding timelines, and it became clear that the stakes had changed. At the same time, a new wave of theories began to take over the conversation. Some fans believe the way everything unfolded felt too perfect, almost like it was designed to capture maximum attention. The timing of releases, the way narratives spread instantly, and how both names dominated the conversation all at once made people question whether this was organic or something more calculated. Unconfirmed reports suggest that when major artists move, there are often strategies behind the scenes. But again, nothing is confirmed. Another layer of intensity came from how the industry responded. While there were no direct confirmations from insiders, there were subtle reactions. Podcasts discussing the situation, commentators analysing every move, and influencers adding their own interpretations. Some suggested that this could be one of the biggest rap moments in years, while others warned that fans might be building a narrative that goes beyond reality. People are divided, and that divide only added more fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, both Drake and Kendrick Lamar continued to move in ways that kept everyone guessing. There were no clear explanations, no direct statements breaking everything down. Instead, there were moves that felt intentional but left open to interpretation. Fans started asking deeper questions. Why now? Why did everything escalate at this exact moment? Was it coincidence, or was there a reason behind the timing? Or the emotional tension reached another level when fans began to treat the situation almost like a real-time story unfolding. Every post, every lyric, every silence became a clue. Supporters on both sides defended their favorite artist with intensity, turning the rivalry into something personal. It wasn't just about who made the better song anymore, it was about identity, loyalty, and legacy. And that's when things started to feel heavier. Some people think this is exactly how modern hip-hop operates, where moments are amplified by social media and quickly turn into global conversations. Others believe this situation stands out because of how controlled yet explosive it feels at the same time. That contrast between precision and chaos made everything harder to understand. And then there's the biggest question that started to take over. Was this all leading somewhere? Fans began to wonder if this escalation was just the peak of a long-standing rivalry or part of something even bigger that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. Nothing is confirmed, but the way everything unfolded made it feel like more than just coincidence. At this point, the line between reality and perception feels thinner than ever. What's actually happening behind the scenes remains unknown, but what's happening publicly has already made a massive impact. The tension is at its highest, the conversation is at its loudest, and the sense that something bigger is at play continues to grow with every passing moment. Now everything reaches that moment where the tension feels like it should finally break. But instead, it lingers, heavier than before. The situation surrounding Drake and Kendrick Lamar doesn't explode into a clear conclusion. Instead, it leaves behind a trail of questions, theories, and moments that don't fully add up. And for many fans, that's exactly why this feels different from any other rap rivalry. At this stage, people aren't just reacting, they're reflecting. Social media is still going crazy, but the tone has shifted. Instead of just debating who won or who had the better diss, fans are stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Why did this unfold like this? Why did everything happen so fast? And why does it feel like there's something missing from the story? These questions are now at the center of the conversation. Some people believe this is where the idea of a setup really starts to take shape, not as a confirmed fact, but as a theory that keeps gaining traction. The way events lined up, the timing of releases, the rapid escalation, and how quickly the narratives spread, feels too precise to some observers. Unconfirmed reports suggest that in today's music industry, moments like this can carry layers of strategy, even if they appear spontaneous on the surface. Still, nothing is confirmed, and there is no direct evidence proving any kind of orchestration. At the same time, others strongly disagree with that idea. They argue that what people are witnessing is simply the natural result of two elite artists pushing each other at the highest level. From this perspective, the intensity, the timing, and even the chaos are just part of what happens when competition reaches its peak. People are divided, and both sides continue to present arguments that keep the debate alive. What adds even more complexity is the silence that follows such a loud moment. After everything that unfolded, there's no full breakdown, no detailed explanation from either Drake or Kendrick Lamar. That absence of clarity has left space for interpretation, and fans have filled that space with their own narratives. Some believe the silence is intentional, a way of letting the moment speak for itself. Others think it leaves too many unanswered questions, making the situation feel incomplete. Meanwhile, the impact of everything that happened is undeniable. Both artists remain at the center of the conversation, with their names continuing to trend and their music being analyzed more than ever. Every bar is still being dissected, every line still debated. Fans are still arguing over meaning, intent, and who truly came out on top. Emotions ran high during the peak of the situation, and that energy hasn't fully disappeared. It's just settled into something more reflective. There's also a growing sense that this moment might have changed how fans view rap rivalries altogether. Instead of just focusing on lyrics and performance, people are now paying attention to timing, strategy, and the way narratives are built in real time. Some people think this adds a new level of depth to hip-hop, while others feel it makes things more complicated and harder to interpret. And then there's the lingering uncertainty. No matter how many theories are discussed, no matter how many timelines are created, there's still no definitive answer to the biggest question. What was this really about? Was it pure competition, a clash of artistry and ego? Or was there something more calculated behind the scenes that hasn't been revealed? Nothing is confirmed, and that uncertainty is what keeps the story alive. Because as long as there are unanswered questions, people will keep talking. They'll keep analyzing, debating, and revisiting every moment, trying to find meaning in something that may never be fully explained. Right now, it feels like the story has reached a pause, but not an ending. The tension may have settled, but the conversation hasn't. And as long as both Drake and Kendrick Lamar continue to move in the industry, fans will keep watching, waiting to see if another chapter unfolds, or if this moment remains one of the most mysterious and debated rivalries in recent hip-hop history. And now we're left with everything laid out, but still so many questions unanswered. What we just walked through isn't just a timeline. It's a story that keeps people thinking long after the music stops. You've got Drake and Kendrick Lamar, two of the biggest names in hip-hop, going head-to-head in a way that felt intense, calculated, and at times almost unreal. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high. Social media is still going crazy trying to piece everything together. Some people believe this was pure competition, two elite artists pushing each other to the limit. Others think the timing, the execution, and the way everything unfolded felt too perfect, like there might have been something bigger happening behind the scenes. But here's the truth. Nothing is confirmed, and that's what makes this situation so powerful. Because when there are no clear answers, the conversation never stops. So now it's your turn. What do you think really happened? Was this just a legendary rap battle that naturally escalated over time? Or do you think there was a deeper setup behind the scenes that we're only starting to notice now? I want to hear your full breakdown. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's really talk about it. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives like this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Because trust me, stories like this don't just disappear. And if anything new comes out, you already know we're covering it first. Stay locked in.